Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode, and it is OCD Awareness Week of 2024.
It sure is. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. We're here to talk awareness, spread awareness. That's kind of our jam anyway. Every week of the year, I guess. But
Correct.
you know, we're about this. So yeah, we thought as for OCD Awareness Week that we could talk about some questions from like between each other, and if you guys have any questions that you want to throw in the chat box, please feel free to do so, and we'll answer what we can. Um, but I just want to say I'm really grateful that this platform exists, right? Like that, I suppose social media more broadly, but that we have this space in which we can talk about OCD openly, because I know that when you and I were first diagnosed or first struggling, that this really was not, it wasn't
Mm,
a resource. And yeah, I think that it has a huge impact for people to be able to come to this space and learn more.
for sure. I agree with that. It's crazy. It happened pretty quickly, too. Because if you
Y-
think back like 10 years ago, it was there, but not to the level it's at now, right?
Totally. Yes, that while social media existed, the yeah, the advocacy community was not as much a part of that space. I mean, when you think of Facebook first coming out and that kind of stuff. So, um,
Or MySpace.
yeah.
But
Or
anyway,
oh my gosh, wow, MySpace. That's a blast from the past. I just want to give a shout out to oh my gosh, I can't speak. Intrusive OCD memes is in the house, and he's
oh,
an awesome advocacy account, and he actually came out with this lovely video about OCD and to promote awareness. And Laura of
awesome.
OCD Doodles is part of it, and several other folks. I think Katie O'Dunn, I think. Um,
Awesome.
yeah. So if you're following me on Instagram, you can check out. I think my stories still has a link to it. But um, thanks for putting that together. It's really awesome. There's a lot of hope to be had with this disorder, and I think the more people hear that, the better off that they are.
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
Um, I was going to ask you maybe sort of a personal question, not too personal.
I'm here for it, man. I don't
Okay.
know. Yeah, if it's too personal, I guess I'll just say something.
Yeah, you'll just be like, no.
Boundaries.
Um, I like how I'm gating it for you. Okay.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Anyways, w- I guess for you is like when was the turning point for you in your recovery where you were like, because it's up and down,
Hmm.
down, 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 stable, up, like it's all over
Yeah,
the place. But sometimes there's kind of this turning point, I think, where you like get it, right? You get,
yeah.
oh, this is what this, I get it now. I get the uncertainty piece. I get,
Hmm. Yeah. I'm really glad that you brought that question up, because I think I hear that a lot from clients, from individuals, like, what does recovery look like, and how do you know when you're in recovery versus
right.
not? And I really don't think it's so black and white as that question that I get asked. But I think in answer to your question, the
It's not
process.
about relief though. My question's coming from like the concepts. Yeah.
Totally. And
Okay.
I think even that, because you and I both, I think, define recovery more from a space of how are you responding to your thoughts and feelings rather than the absence of thoughts and feelings.
Hmm.
And I think I can say that I know that, but I don't know anything definitively because uncertainty. But did you
Right.
change your mind
Uh-huh.
yesterday? I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that the concept or the concepts of recovery, that the concept of uncertainty and the larger concepts within recovery, it's like an onion. I find that with as the years have progressed, as I've sort of committed to navigating my thoughts and feelings in a different manner, that especially those related to doubt and anxiety, that it's almost as though there are different points of realization and different depths of understanding, if that makes sense. So I can't name
It's
a
true.
singular moment. I think one of the moments that stands out most to me was actually in my initial bout with therapy, though. And I was for months saying to my therapist, but what if it's not OCD? What if it's not OCD? And he was so patient with me. And he he finally kind of got through to me. And I remember that very distinctly of no matter what, this is OCD. So basically,
Right.
the way he explained it to me, for those of you who are not aware, and then I want to hear about your thoughts on this because I'm chattering too much. But
No, you're doing great.
thanks, buddy.
Mhm.
So I think that essentially when I first went into treatment, my obsessions were about whether or not I'd relapsed by eating a piece of tiramisu. I was sober. I got sober at 19. And so essentially, what happened was my therapist said, it doesn't matter whether or not you relapsed. This is still OCD because you won't put it down, right? You are continually in this decision making process and you refuse to just land on a decision.
Mhm.
And it was at that point that it occurred to me, oh, it doesn't matter whether or not my thoughts are real or
Yeah, it's such a
just
good point.
OCD.
Right.
It's that I'm still trying to figure it out and I won't stop. And that's totally taken over my life. And I realized that that would be maybe it could be triggering for some people to hear, but ultimately that's the part. The part is the disorder is in keeping in the decision making process.
Right. Distinguishing, like, when like, that this it's irrelevant and that if I'm stuck, I need to pivot.
Right. Right. I just need to make a choice and go with it and just see what happens. And
Right.
that's essentially what I did.
Yeah, you sure did.
And here we are.
And here we
So,
are.
I mean, that was a real standout moment for me was when I finally recognized that the question of whether or not it was OCD was a part of the disorder as well, that there was that the content of the thoughts really didn't matter, that it was the fact that I just could not let it go. I wouldn't let it go, I should say. I could let it go, but I didn't.
You were unwilling
I
to
was
let it
unwilling to let it go.
go.
So yeah, I'm curious to know though, what that moment was for you. And I do
Mhm.
see um, that there are some questions coming in, so then we can kind
Okay.
of look at that.
Yeah, let's answer them.
Oh, well,
Oh,
mine
oh, mine.
cliffhanger.
Sorry.
That's
I
okay.
was like, "Oh, let's bypass."
It's too
I mean,
personal.
shit. I think there's been, like you said, there's a lot of these moments. There's a lot of these aha moments that you have in recovery. And I think it's like, for me, a lot of it was psychoeducation. It was like really understanding the concept itself versus like being in my head. And that's hard to do when you're at an all-time low, to like read a book on what OCD is, right? So
Mm,
like understanding
true.
it from like a treatment standpoint was huge. I think the moment I had this click and aha moment, one of them was when I had to accept, like, oh wait, my child could die.
Mm,
She could die, right? Like, that's just a true statement.
right.
And you either can accept that or you can resist it and just be feeling like shit the rest of your life and making every decision out of fear.
Mm.
And it's just,
Dude, that's so powerful.
yeah, oh, that's good. I'm glad it felt pretty powerful when it was happening. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie. Or, whether it's by my hand or someone else's.
Well,
Um, yeah.
yeah, I guess that's the point is that I was actually just having a conversation about this with somebody with health anxiety, among other sort of iterations of
Yeah.
OCD. And the conversation became, and again, this is triggering probably for people, but we don't avoid triggers
Mm-mm.
in this realm, is that you will die. You are currently dying, right? The question is, when will it happen? How will it happen? Is there something that you could do right now that will delay that from happening? Or delay that happening. But I think that there's a lot of freedom in just saying, like, yeah, it could happen. And then in some instances, it's inevitable, right? Like, see this a lot with existential OCD, like, well, what if my parents die? And, what if, like I struggled with way back when I was a kid, and same.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So yeah, but I
It's
actually really appreciate the way that you put it too, because I think it's actually kind of the same realization, but yours was
in a
way
different
more
no, no, no,
accessible.
no, no, no.
No, I'm not
It's
even
just
trying to
a
be. It's
It's just a different it's so good that there's 2 voices here though, because some
yeah,
people can hear it in a different way. And
yeah.
I think that's also what's so powerful about talking about OCD for
Mm,
consistently or this entire week, right? Is just really let's hear all the voices and let's
so true.
yeah, something will hit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, yes, we need all the different ways of saying it, because people will understand it differently based on how it's couched and how it's presented.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, uh, one of our watchers, listeners was asking, do you all struggle with irrationality? If I get a fever, I think I'm going to melt. If I get a cut, I think I'm going to bleed to death, etc. Do you want to take this, or?
Yeah, I mean, sure, we don't all get it because we have different variations, but yes, I mean, of course, right? It's this very extreme. I'm going to take something really small like a paper cut, and that means I'm going to bleed out, bleed to death,
Yeah.
right? It might be like looking to see if it's coagulating or checking or
Yeah.
um, eh, all the time we see any iteration of this, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think that the interesting thing about this question is that feelings aren't rational. So I think that's how OCD gets its hooks in you, is that anxiety level goes way up, and it doesn't respond to rationality. So yeah, I think to some greater or lesser extent, all of the fear that occurs is uh, excessive, if not completely irrational or completely detached from reality.
Yeah, the intensity is so high and it does not fit the facts, as you
No,
would say in DBT,
no,
um, at all.
no.
So
It does, it does not. It does not play by the rules of logic. Um, it's like, but it could happen, and that's the thing, is it could. Like, anything could happen.
anything can happen.
Yeah.
Um, well, and I think you know where I'm going with this is like there's probable, right? Is it
Yes.
likely?
Just because it could happen doesn't mean it will happen, or that it's
Right.
likely to happen. And that is a point at which a lot of people with OCD get stuck, is like, well, it could happen, so it's likely to happen. And therefore, I've got to do all of these things to make sure that it doesn't. Um, but that's, yeah.
Y- Yeah. And something you told me a long time ago that I think your therapist told you is like optimism
Hmm.
is the best exposure of all, right?
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think it was told to me as well. Um, and it's so true. It's like you truly let go and and you're still scared as shit. Like you're scared, you're terrified,
Mm,
right? But you don't have to be like, oh, it's 50-50, or I'm
right.
gonna be fixated on only the maybe not piece.
Yeah.
Or I mean the maybe piece versus
Right. Right. That actually, if you act as though it won't happen, that's actually a great way into exposure.
yes, thank you. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Um, it's In this vein, I'm curious as to if there was sort of one message that you could give to somebody who's on this journey, that's helped you in your own. And as I like sort of reflect on this question myself, I'm aware of the fact that that's changed over time, right? And
Yeah.
that's part of that evolution of recovery is like at different moments, different things seem very important. But I'm curious, like where you are now and in your personal journey, in your professional journey, what's one thing that you would want somebody on this journey to know?
Hmm. That's such a hard question. I feel like you're being Stu right now and asking those end of the podcast questions.
If you had a billboard,
Yeah.
I
I'm
want
like, "Man, I know he's gonna ask me that
if
one."
if you had a billboard and then you were trying to tell people about
Yeah.
OCD, what would it look like and what would it say and why? You're
Oh,
welcome.
I hope he hears this.
So weird.
You're welcome, Stu.
You're welcome, Stu.
Speaking of Stu, I am wearing his shirt, Stuart
Oh,
Ralph,
yeah, so Stuart
the
Ralph
OC
is the host of the OCD Stories, which is an
and awesome.
awesome podcast, so go check that out if you haven't already.
Um, okay. So on that same vein is I think a huge game changer to me was education, right? Like, and
Mm,
even, and I said that earlier, but I think the more you become informed of how it works, how to treat it, like how you need to respond, and how to keep that exposure mindset,
mm,
it's you're golden, right? It's like, man, listening to the OCD stories as a clinician at that time and also struggling early on with my obsessions were really powerful because I got to hear a lot of different clinicians' voices being talking about different variations of it, right?
yeah.
And then also treating it is like, if I'm gonna ask my clients to do something really gnarly, you
You bet your
better
bottom
but yeah,
dollar.
I mean, I'm gonna have to go do it. You
Absolutely.
can't sit there. I mean, listen, you're gonna have to be okay with doing compulsions. They're gonna happen. It's just gonna happen. Mental compulsions are really in
Yeah,
that's one, but you can, you're going to get stuck sometimes. But that's also like allowing grace, allowing your forgiveness and saying, I'm going to practice self-compassion and I'm going to let that inform the next decisions that I make moving forward. It's like, okay, well, in those moments, maybe I really need support from my friend, or maybe I really need to go for a walk and that I
mm,
can do exposures later and it's not the time. So kind of also getting used to how my OCD works and like what I need in those moments that
yeah.
help me get through it. Um, and really, a lot of it's just been like, nope, mindfully aggressive. Like, we're here.
Yeah,
You can go down path A and it ends horribly.
yeah. Don't go further down that path.
Don't. Let's
I'm
just
not.
stay the
I
course.
have no
Yeah.
idea. Thank you for the question. Namaste.
That
Um,
and knowing that it feels like your brain, it seems like your brain is broken, like
yeah,
it's cracked. And the reality is I really would want you to know that I have seen some dark days in my life
yeah.
and have been in hospitals and taken every medication possible.
Mm,
And I'm here today doing it. And I
yeah,
have a family and a child that I adore so much that OCD tried to rob me of. Um, and is it hard? Yes. And I know what it is now though. And I go, there's
yeah,
that noise that's getting me hooked.
yeah.
What
There's doubt. There it
there's
is.
doubt, there's doubt. We don't even need to say it's OCD. It's like that. It's like you said earlier, it's like I'm getting stuck.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm not doing life the way I want to do it.
Yeah. Values
But
always.
totally. But what I love about what you've brought up here is I think you're speaking to is the element of flexibility, because I
Yes.
think a lot of the time when people are first looking or learning about recovery, there's like, okay, I'm going to find the answer and
Yeah.
that's going to be the thing. And then I'll be good forever. And that isn't how this works in my experience and your experience and the clients that we've worked with. I don't think either. It's more about accruing different approaches, trying them out, seeing how it goes, and then learning how to improvise with them in the moment when you are
So true.
struggling. So it's like, okay, right now I just need a hard line. Like I'm not able to, I just need to get really present, like you were saying. Or right now I need to acknowledge that that's uncertain and I need to open up to these emotions and how they are manifest in my body and make space for this whole experience to just be. Or right now, I need a little humor just to interrupt this whole
Yes.
experience. Like, whoa, Nelly,
Well,
back
that's
up,
that's
right?
definitely been, like, our relationship has
Yeah,
helped me, like
yeah. Well, the end of story, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I actually just the other day I threatened to put one of our text message exchanges up on the up on the internet because I was
Oh,
like,
man.
that is
You
the
should have.
essence. Maybe I'll read it as the ending point. I was
Okay, good.
so
It's
good
pretty
because it was
good.
the essence of recovery
Yeah.
in my opinion. Um, and yeah, I think that. Hmm,
Yeah,
that
don't take it so
flexibility is key.
seriously.
Yes, don't take any of life too seriously. It's way too, as I think Mark Twain says, it's far too important, to take so
Yeah.
seriously. Um, or maybe I've just misattributed
Yeah,
that quote.
it might be yeah, it's I think it's Ralph what's his name? Waldo Emerson, maybe.
Yeah, could
But
be.
anyways, it
I
doesn't
like
matter.
him too. He's
I do
great.
too.
Um, so I also, one of the things that I think has become clearer over time in terms of how it impacts recovery from OCD and just supports like a healthier relationship with your own mind. I don't think that as a goal can be underestimated, by the way, because it's this all this conflict and all this like, it's like horrible
Yeah.
in here that's causing oftentimes so much distress. Um, but learning how to be kind and gentle with yourself no matter what's coming up,
Mhm.
I think is such a powerful tool in that flexible toolkit that we were talking about. And so being able to acknowledge and validate your own emotional experience, like, yeah, it is really scary. You take something like I was saying toward the beginning of the episode, like, I'm going to die,
Mhm.
right? Or my loved one,
Welcome.
yeah, and my loved one is going to die. And that's really scary. It's
Total loss
really
of control. Total.
right. Totally. And also that like holding yourself in that is so freaking beautiful. Like
Yeah.
being able to like turn toward yourself and like hold your hand on your heart and to say like, "Oh, wow." Like I just felt that my stomach do a flip and I'm recognizing just how unstable it all is and that's so hard. And that's our reality and I'm going to make space for that. I got you. It's okay.
Yep.
We're going to walk through this one moment at a time, and
Yeah.
um obviously like we have like an existential bent here. It's like how my obsession started and I know
Mm.
that Kelly's tends to go this way too, but it
Yeah, it's
um
doing great right now.
oh
No, I'm just kidding. It's fine. It's fine. This
no,
is good.
but it
That's it.
is.
Yeah, you
It's
practice the opportunity. This is an opportunity.
Yeah. But in that, can you soften toward yourself and like just extend all the warmth and love because it's so hard. It's so
Yeah.
hard. It's hard to be a human. It's hard to be alive. Um,
Mhm.
but if you can hold yourself in that experience, that's a total game changer.
It is for
Yeah.
sure.
You're a
For sure.
beautiful human, Kelly.
Oh,
Just wanted
so
to
are
remind
you.
you in case you were wondering.
You're gonna
Um,
make me cry. I'm like, don't cry in front of everyone. Just hold it together.
oh, that's
Same.
so highly overrated, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I don't hold it together on the sidelines. I'm in the game though, okay?
You know?
Um, thank you, same. And I
Mm,
wouldn't have been here if it weren't for you. That's for damn sure.
yeah, well,
Um,
yeah, I think that that's for anyone who's watching too. The beauty of this community is that there are so many people
true.
who understand and who are willing to hold your hand through the hard moments. Um, So reach out. It's terrifying also. Talk about scary, right? Like, oh, I'm just gonna like put myself out there. And I'm not saying that you should just like completely bare your soul to a complete
No.
stranger. Um, my relationship with Kelly took a very long time and a lot of work to
Mhm.
build, right? Um, but yeah, we walk this journey together, all of us. And that's how we get through one day at a time.
I think you make a good point too, because I think well, obviously it does feel like you're alone if your partner or your family or whoever's in your life doesn't understand OCD, or they can't wrap their minds around it, or you don't feel safe enough to share with them,
Mm,
that you don't have to have those people get it, because there are so many resources. There's groups, there are people online you can connect with on social media, and everybody's so welcoming
mm,
and loving. We're so lucky to be part of such an awesome community,
mm.
that please reach out to people in this community if you haven't already, because they're your foundation in a lot of ways. So,
Totally. And IOCDF is a great resource in that regard. There are local affiliates here in Southern California. We have OCD SoCal, but they're all over the country and the world. OCD Game Changers does a lot of stuff internationally as well, and throughout the states.
mhm.
There are, like we mentioned, podcasts and like the OCD stories, and there are groups really committed to spreading awareness, like Made of Millions, for example. So lots and lots and lots of people out there who, yeah, who just want to support you, and because they either have seen so many people who have been there and loved people who have been there, or because they've been there themselves.
Yeah, they get it.
Yeah,
It's just, you walk into a room and you're like, "Oh, you have OCD," and it's almost like, okay, I like can take a big sigh of relief.
yeah, totally. Totally, because it just brain functions similarly. Um, yeah,
And so many people keep it hidden, I guess is my point.
yeah,
They go to their jobs, they, you know, do their family, their friendships, their personal life while struggling, and it's incredible that people go in silence for so many years. It's
yeah, yeah.
sucks.
It does suck. And yeah, and my hope is that by talking about it as we do, that
Yeah.
becomes less and less necessary over time, because really having a brain that works like ours does is nothing to be ashamed of or to want
Mhm.
to hide. Um, there are a lot of things about having a mind that functions in this capacity, um, that are really remarkable. It's just if it,
It's when it goes sideways. You
it's,
gotta stay
yeah,
on the track, stay on the
yeah,
rails,
it's
Toodle.
tootle. I know it is. And I know that there's some controversy out there about this idea of like OCD having benefits. And I'm not saying the disorder itself has benefits. I want to be clear about that.
Right.
I think that there is a type, at least this is not research based. This is purely out of my clinical experience, which could very well be biased, but I see people who are creative and thoughtful and who are excellent problem solvers and who are diligent and persistent who end up in my office. And it's just when these tools are misappropriated, when you start trying to problem solve uh, thoughts that are very creative, or feelings that are very intense because of a sensitivity, that we get into trouble
Mhm.
and that our lives get hijacked. So, um, yeah. Any other thoughts on spreading awareness, on like maybe words of hope? Oh, look, I'm being Stu again.
Nice. The words of hope would be, I like I've said, is that I've definitely faced some really dark days, and I didn't think I'd get through them, and I persisted because I was like, "I can't keep doing this, and I do want to live, so
Yeah,
I'm gonna try with everything I have and totally throw myself into helping myself get better."
yeah,
And it didn't start with OCD for me, it started with, trauma therapy. So and then it went from there.
yeah,
So
yeah.
everyone's journey is different.
That is for sure. Yeah,
There's
but
always hope.
there's always hope, and I love the idea that if you really throw yourself into the process,
You will
that
get better.
you will, like, things change. Um, and
Mhm.
life, like, on the whole, gets so much better. I think the like the hope piece on my end, I was actually really taken, and I know I've shared this with you, but Ellie Brellis, she has a one woman show. I think it's called Driver's Seat. I met her once, but she has a social media platform on Instagram and stuff. And she talked very openly about a suicide attempt that she'd made. And she talked specifically about this idea of more, right? Like it's not that the hope for the future is that there's never any more pain, because that is just not realistic, but knowing that there is so much more, and like more joy and excitement and beauty, and yes, more pain and challenge and difficulty, as we were talking about earlier, the recovery process. It's not as though there are no more
Mm,
anxious thoughts or feelings. It's like that still happens, and navigating that is a part of daily life. It's different. Like the navigating process is a lot easier today than it was when I started on this journey, I think for you too. But
yeah.
understanding that the beauty of recovery is that you get more of it all.
Yeah.
You get to experience it all. There's a quote by Rainier Marie Rilke, who wrote, yet letters to a young poet. I can speak. Letters to a young poet. And the quote is, let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. And
Wow.
I think that that's life on a broader scale, and that's my hope for people, is that you can go out there and you can live a big, bold, beautiful life that includes all of those things, and that you get to be present to that experience instead of off trying to resolve some uncertainty that you can't possibly resolve.
Wow. I mean, glad you went last.
Stop.
That was so well said.
Oh, well, thanks, dude.
It's so true. It's so, so true. Is like in the darkest moments, you think this is it. This is it forever.
Mm,
And the reality is nothing is permanent. And
no.
that if you help yourself and you make change happen, you have the opportunity to live this big, bold life. I love that
Mm,
quote. And that includes pain. It
it does.
does. And a lot of tribulations, but it also includes, if I could see many years ago when I was at my lowest where I am now, it would have been so much easier to be like, well, of course I'm going to not do this. I'm going to do this way, right? But
Right.
you don't feel it in the moment. You don't recognize it. You just let feelings control your decisions.
Right. Yep. And then you don't get the big, bold,
Froze.
beautiful
No,
life.
no, it
You
ends.
just know that you're just spinning your wheels.
Yeah.
So to the recovery, I don't think I'm gonna end it. I'm gonna end it on you because again, like to this point of like you like you keep going and you keep going and then you hold each other in it and you hold yourself in it um and there's beauty and there's pain and there's terror and there's all of it. So I got this text from my best friend, Kelly Frankie,
Oh,
um,
dear.
a few days ago. And she said, I spent 5.5 hours today doing kid events and had to reschedule events for them. And all I could think was, well, I have to accept uncertainty that people will think I'm an asshole and leave. Oh, and my child might fail, but that's okay. Let that shit go and be groundless. And then, oh, wait, people die. Deal with it. I'm like, huh? This is too much for me. And then you texted me, and I'm laughing now in groundlessness. So my hope in this, and that's it, right? Like,
Oh, and
yeah,
people die, deal with that.
people die. Just deal with it. And it's like, but then I love the last part. I'm laughing now in groundlessness, right? I'm okay. Okay, this is
But
what's happening,
I don't
right?
know if I could have done that if it weren't. I mean, I'm sure I could access it, but to the fact that we can do that in a text message almost immediately is like, oh, there's someone else out there who gets it, and now we can laugh because we have a rapport, and obviously we're best friends, so we know each other really well, that the levity is there, and I
Yeah.
don't, that's
And
not
the trust
always
is there
accessible, and the
too.
trust.
Yeah, that
Yes,
like
they're
I'm
safe.
not laughing at you or you're not laughing at me. We're laughing together.
Of
Um
how shitty this is.
yeah, right. And for
And
context,
beautiful.
I had just said I don't like groundlessness. Of
Yeah,
course.
that's how she started it. That's how it
And I was like,
all.
but of course, groundlessness doesn't give a about what I think. But
No,
I thought you'd like to know that my stance has not changed. in and that and I think I said,
you left
yeah,
that part
it's a
out.
very strong stance. Feet cemented outside of Grauman's Chinese theater strong. In case nobody like that's a weird reference probably for
Oh
the
my
Gen
god,
Zers out there, but like really like your feet
really
really planted in
cement.
cement. So yeah, my preference is not to be in that
Nope.
groundless state, but I've also grown and learned so much because of my willingness to laugh in the groundlessness and be in the groundlessness and hold myself in the groundlessness. So
Yeah, it's true. That's how we're here.
yeah. So
So on that note,
Godspeed, everybody.
yes,
Happy oh my God, I cannot speak. Happy
yes,
OCD Awareness Week to
yes,
everybody, and sending big hugs to all of those out there who are on this journey with us.
yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Thanks